Call the special council meeting to order. Allie, could you please call roll?
Councilmember Bruce Bassett. Here. Councilmember Mike Serro. Here. Councilmember Mike Grady. Here. Councilmember Dan Grouse. Councilmember Steve Litzo.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Al Janke.
I'm here.
Mayor Jim Pearman.
Here. To start with, we have a couple of special things to begin with, and one near and dear to my heart is occasionally we get to honor Eagle Scouts within the community. And tonight we have 4 Eagle Scouts, but we have 3 with us tonight. We have, this would be Jared Thomas, and we also have Eagle Scout Aaron Azo. He's not here. Eagle Scout Tracy Wright. And we also have Eagle Scout Alex, is it Freely? Okay, great. And it's special to me because I think that this is a very unique thing, that the young men that do this, the clock ticks until you're 18. And after you're 18, you can't go back and get a redo. It's over. And also it gives them a wonderful opportunity to show citizenship, to, as you'll see, their merit badges to become accomplished in a wide variety of different special items, swimming, life-saving, civic service, what have you. And also, it's been my experience being a fellow Eagle and seeing them through the years that once an Eagle, always an Eagle. And I have never met an Eagle to say, well, what happened there? We've always, if you meet other Eagles out in the field when looking for jobs or what have you, it really does say quite a bit about the character and who you are. And it's also interesting as you go through life, too, that there are other groups such as Rotary and other civic groups that you always will find an abundance of Eagles. And so with that, what I'd like you to do, if you could come forward and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your Eagle project, which is the culmination and the signature of your Eagle badge. Please introduce yourself.
All right. Hello, I am Jared Thomas, and I am a Eagle Scout in Troop 457. I actually recently turned 18 in September, but I wasn't too close to the deadline, so my parents didn't worry too much. But so my project was right here on the island. I worked to build a trail parallel to Southeast 84th Street in Upper Luther Burbank Park. I worked with the Mountains to Sound Greenway and the City of Mercer Island on an area that was apparently designated by the police department as an area of safety concerns where people were walking along the street, and there are no speed bumps in that area. People tend to speed through. Also, so we took the walking area and they had the guardrail put in at the corner of that street, and we built a trail all the way up through so people can walk, set into the woods about 10 feet. I had around 30 volunteers, including, I was happy to see Mr. Pearman come out and help a little bit. And
very little that day.
So we had about 150 hours of service, not for myself, so I was very happy to have the community help me. And that pretty much sums it up. It was a great experience. Thanks for having me.
Great. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Tracy Wright, and I'm from Troop 624, and my Eagle project there was a trail leading from Homestead Park to West Mercer Elementary School, and whenever it would rain, the trail would overflow, and there would be big puddles, and it would be all slippery, and being a runner myself, I've actually fallen on that trail, so I kind of knew that it wasn't that great when it was wet. So what we did is we dug a drainage trench up along the trail on the uphill side to catch all the water coming down and move it off the trail and move it down, and then we ran some piping to move it into a better spot for the water to build up. And I had around 30 people. We did it in about a day, and it was pretty fun. We learned a lot, like how hard it is to dig drainage trenches uphill. You got to go really far down to still get that slope, and I learned a lot from the experience, and thank you for having me.
Great. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Alex Freely. I'm from Jared's troop, Troop 457. Let's see, my Eagle project was working on at the South Mercer playfields. We removed the blackberries that were near the baseball fields because so many baseballs, so many toys. Kids cry their eyes out whenever they lose a toy. So I thought that, and I've lost a few toys myself. So I decided to clear it out, and lo and behold, I found quite a few baseballs, softballs, and even a couple of soccer bars. It was fun to work. I got a couple of my friends to work with me, and we got it done really fast, along with the scouts in my troop. I got about 150 hours of total service that was not black and blank, and just everyone worked together and just cleared it out really quickly. It was really fun to do with everybody, though it is really exhausting to do it in the summer sun. Thank you for having me.
Hey, congratulations. And if I could have the three of you please come forward. Scouts, please come forward. Yeah.
Diane Pottinger, I just want to summarize. These guys put in over 400 hours that saved at about $20 an hour. Go ahead, guys. Get your up there next to the mayor. It saved U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates $20 per hour for volunteer labels, so that's about $8,000. Maybe you guys can put a scoreboard in down at the softball field.
Here's Ashley the city pin.
There you go.
Your sash there.
But thanks again for doing this, and the Parks Department for coming up with projects where there's a whole slew of scouts that are, calling, so from Mercer Island. So I think we're going to see quite a few more people next year.
Bring them on. Well, congratulations. Yeah, congratulations. That's great. Great. Thank you.
I had the privilege of serving with Alex on Safe Rides a couple of weekends ago, and he was certainly, the community appreciates that also. Yeah. Good job, Alex.
By the way, do we have any parents there, parents in the room? I just want to say, you know what, these guys didn't get there on their own, and parents, thanks so much for everything you did.
We also, I neglected to say, we have our district executive, Elva Buku from the Scout Office, and Peter Wang, our district chairman. Between these two guys, they keep me organized.
Great. Thanks for coming so much. Congratulations, everybody. Well, and now our second special business, and it's a very special honor, to honor one of our council members. You didn't wear your new lapel pin.
Last chance to wear this one.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, this is the...
Another one. One in each lapel. Exactly.
Well, this is an evening for us to really honor Steve, and besides doing a few little items of business, like our budget. But anyway, it's time for us to honor Steve and all the time and commitment that he has put into the city, and it has been a lot of time and energy, and I don't think anyone realizes it more until you sit in that seat. And the formality of it is we have a resolution here that I'd like to read for Steve, and I have a copy of it, and then we have a gift for you. And then the council will give them an opportunity to say a few words. And then, Steve, the floor will be yours. Okay? So with that is a resolution of acknowledgement and commendation for Steve Litzo's service to the citizens of Mercer Island. Whereas Steve Litzo has served the citizens of Mercer Island with distinction for the last 7 years as a Mercer Island Council member, and whereas Steve was first elected to the City Council in November 2003 and then reelected in November 2007, and whereas Steve not only served his community in his official capacity on the City Council, but has also served in many ways through his church, the Mercer Island Rotary Club, and his children's school and sports organizations. And whereas during Steve's tenure of City Council service, Mercer Island experienced a number of notable achievements, including design and construction of the community center at Mercer View, passage of the 2008 Park Improvement Levy, development and adoption of the Luther Burbank Park Master Plan, planning and construction of the Boys and Girls Club Peak facility for Island youth, funding major improvements to Pioneer Park, Island Crest Park, the high school football and South Mercer playfields, keeping Mary Waith Pool open by transferring it to Northwest Center, engagement of legislation amending the town center design guidelines and design guidelines outside the town center, design and construction of the very challenging and complex sewer lakeline project, establishment of a stable long-term replacement funding mechanism for the island's fire apparatus, and whereas over the past 7 years, Steve served as City Council liaison to Planning Commission, Utility Board, Arts Council, Disability Board, and Youth and Family Service Advisory Board, as well as serving for 5 years on the Council's Public Safety Committee and Eastside Transportation Partnership, the Council Sustainability Committee, the Parks, Bond, and Levy Stakeholders Committee, and Ad Hoc City School Finance Committee. And whereas Steve will be remembered by his colleagues for his intelligence, quick wit, and his commitment to engaging the public in the democratic process. And whereas Steve will also be remembered by the entire police department for the day when, at a public safety committee meeting, he demonstrated how a taser will stiffen your spine. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Mercer Island, on behalf of its citizens, the City Council commends Steve Litzo for his many years of service to his community and wishes him great success in his new role as Washington State Senator representing Mercer Island and the rest of the 41st Legislative District. Approved this 13th day of December, 2010. Congratulations, Steve, and job well done. And also, to make it a little more formal, we always have our thank you, and hopefully you'll bring this down with you down in Olympia. But it's to Steve Litzo, an appreciation for many years of exceptional service to the citizens of Mercer Island City Council, 2004 to 2010. Steve, there you go. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Okay, good. And also, Steve, before that, I believe the police chief has something that he would like to to offer as well.
Try that. Good evening. For the record, your police chief, Ed Holmes. It's my pleasure to introduce a couple of union members of the police union, the leadership. They approached me recently and asked if they could have an opportunity to recognize Steve just for the work you've done on behalf of Public Safety Committee and the Police Department. So if I could have Sergeant Brian Noel and Corporal Jeff Magnan come up here, please. Jeff's going to read a letter, and we have a couple things they want to give to you.
Good evening. As Chief Holmes just explained, we are members of the Police Association. I'm the Vice President. The President was unavailable today to have this honor. I did want to read something at the end. We're going to have a taser out. If you did want to do that again, you'd be more than happy to. The Mercer Island Police Association wishes to extend its sincere gratitude to Councilmember, now State Senator, Steve Litzo, for his 7 years of leadership and service to the City of Mercer Island, specifically the Police Department. During your tenure on the Council, the Police Department has successfully handled numerous challenging situations. The support during these challenging times has always been much appreciated. For the last 5 years, you have served as a member of the Public Safety Committee. During your tenure on this committee, you were open-minded, analytical, and fair. Officers have come to know you as someone who understands police issues and supports the department, especially when it comes to tasers. Your input on your council as a member of the Public Safety Committee has been very valuable and will be hard to replace. In addition to all of your council and committee work, the Police Department has also been grateful to the public support you have provided. Public support that you have provided to officers of the department. In public forums, you have consistently shown your support of the police department and its mission, even when the issues were controversial or unpopular. The police support that you have shown has had a positive and lasting impact on morale of the rank and file of the officers. The Mercer Island Police Association believes that the high standard of leadership and care that you have shown for your office and the citizens of Mercer Island is an example to us all. Again, we thank you for your support. Steve Litzow, and appreciative of your many years in support of the Mercer Island Police Department.
Councilmember Steve Litzow has earned special appreciation for his work on the Mercer Island City Council and for his support of the Mercer Island Police Department. Councilmember Litzow is hereby granted this award given this day, 13th of December, 2010. Great. Council members?
Steve, I also would like to thank you for your 7 years of service here. It's been a pleasure serving with you. And I have to say that this is the most impressive collection of glassware that I have seen yet, awarded to anyone by this council. So it's very impressive. Best of luck down there. I know they need a lot of help down there in Olympia, and you're just the guy to do it.
Mike?
Just reiterate that. Congratulations, Steve, and a special congratulations and thank you to Jenny, because I'm sure without Jenny, I know without Jenny that Steve wouldn't have kept plugging away, and very tenacious of you, Steve, and you enjoy the labors of your accomplishment, but like Councilmember Jenke said, they've got some work to do down there, and you'll certainly help them out.
Well, you certainly deserve it. You worked very hard to get that position, and you're to be commended. And I know you just doorbelled the heck out of this island and the surrounding community. And I know how much hard work that is, so I was really proud of you. I have to say I'm very sad because, I'm going to miss getting those sports updates. That's an inside joke. But seriously, we need your help down there. You're going to appreciate the transportation dilemma as you drive down the I-5 corridor frequently and gain a new appreciation for the problems that the state faces. So I, again, offer whatever help I can to help you. I know you really have jumped in both feet with the sustainability issues, particularly electric vehicle stuff. You got a lot of people here that are rooting for you and a lot of people that want to help you. So keep that in mind. Thanks.
Congratulations and thank you. In the time we've been on council together, I can't say that we've always agreed on things, but we've agreed on a lot of things. And I have always really treasured your clarity of thinking about issues and your ability to be clear in what you're doing and where you're going. And that clarity has helped me a lot. So I want to thank you and say congratulations and onward and upward for you.
With that, Steve, the mic is yours.
Well, thank you, and I'd like to thank everybody, starting first with the citizens of Mercer Island. It has truly been a privilege to serve these past 7 years. It has been a great experience. We are fortunate to have a very informed citizenry with superior verbal skills. And one of the great joys of this job is debating the roles of government, what we should and should not be spending our tax dollars on and our staff on. And it has been truly a great experience. I've learned a tremendous amount, and I appreciate all of the help and support I've received from the citizens. I'd also like to thank Rich and your staff. Very professional, hard work. Obviously, the city runs well. We could not do our work without you. It has been a pleasure to be working with obviously the police department and the fire department maintenance, Parks and Rec, and your staff has made this job, it's a part-time job, but is very enjoyable and easy to get stuff accomplished. So thank you. And finally, to my fellow council members, it has been truly an honor and a privilege to serve. I have really enjoyed it. We have enjoyed the debates, the passion, the humor. We have not always agreed, but I do truly believe that this council represents the diverse opinions and political leanings of the island. And I think our debates up on the council here have all been with the utmost honor to make this Mercer Island a better place to live, and with respect for each other. And I hope that I'm able to take that collaborative spirit and joy of serving our citizenry down to Olympia with me. And so thank you all for the experience. I really appreciate it and look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Take a little break.
So all I can say is let them eat cake.
Yeah. We're going to actually take a break here. Did Jenny just leave? Where did she? Did she run?
She's running carpool
Okay.
right now.
Hey,
Oh,
come here for a sec. I just wanted to say that on behalf of the council, we understand who have spouses what it means to be a spouse of a council member and all of the things that go on in the community and what it means. It is a twofer when you get elected. And Steve, you're blessed to have a great wife, and thank you very much for your time on the council. That's great.
So, Jenny, with your one appearance here, you have now appeared here more often than my wife.
I will still watch you on television.
There you go. Well, great. Well, thanks again so much, and thanks for the whole family for everything you've done. Okay. Bye-bye. And we're going to take a break now, and we have a little cake.
Great.
Okay. Okay, if we could reconvene the council meeting. Before we get on to our agenda bills, there's a special report that Rich would like to give us about the storm and the effects on the island.
Yeah, I thought I asked the staff today to give me a bit of a tally of what happened over the weekend, and since we're having a meeting tonight, I thought I'd run it by you. As you saw through all the news media reports, a lot of water fell in our area. I think Seattle recorded just between midnight and midday yesterday 2.5 inches, and there was even more on top of that prior to midnight. Overall, Mercer Island fared pretty well. Our storm drainage system functioned quite well. We had no major events within our public system. We had crews out throughout all this weekend, going out and clearing catch basins as fast as they could find them and trying to keep the water flowing ultimately down to the lake. But overall, the report was that the public system fared quite well. We did have, though, some issues in the private drainage systems where people's own private drainage systems were plugged up. That is part of what led to, I think, a couple of landslides on private property. We had no landslides of any consequence in the public right-of-way. Had a couple places where we had to remove some superficial debris, but otherwise the public rights-of-way were in good shape. On private property, however, we've had 3 slides, one on Holly Lane, one at the 3800 block of East Mercer, and one at the 5700 block of West Mercer. Of those 3 slides, 2 properties were significantly impacted on Holly Lane. We had to red tag one of those homes and yellow tag the other. A red tag means our building official goes in with a geotechnical engineer and determines that it is unsafe for anybody to stay in that building. So right now, one home is empty. The other home, it can be accessed, but there's parts of the property that are cordoned off. I just now got a call from the code official just a few minutes ago that the slide on East Mercer, they went out and inspected it today because we only became aware of it today, and they have determined it too needed to be red tagged. That property owner was not at home at the time and is not there now, so we know they're safe because they just weren't there. But they will come home, I'm sure, to a lot bigger problem than they thought. And we continue to be working on the slide on West Mercer Way. With the sewer system, we had some alarms go off with the sewer pump stations around the island. Our crews were ready to respond, and so they made the adjustments that were necessary. So the effluent was pumped and managed around the island successfully with no overflows to the lake. However, at the King County Metro pump station, we have 2 of them where they take the effluent and pump it under the lake to their system, ultimately to the Renton treatment plant. One of their pump stations had a backup, and there was sewage that was overflowing and overflowing for some period of time. King County dispatched crews and ultimately has taken care of that problem. But that if you heard any media reports of an overflow, it was at King County's pump station. So there's a lot of other data about this that I could share. If you have questions later, give me a call. But for the most part, we weathered it pretty well. It's raining, as you may have noticed this evening. I think the ground is totally saturated. We get more rain. I think we can probably expect more slides. We're at that point where it doesn't take much now for land to move. And we're also told in the weather reports that there may be some wind, particularly with the system that is out there right now, and that usually means trees coming down. So this storm sequence isn't over. We're probably midway through it, and we'll take it as it comes.
Thanks, Rich. Okay, with that, we'll get on to the special business. We've got Agenda Bill 4590. And Bruce Fletcher come forward to tell us about the Mary Waith Pool.
For For the record, Bruce Fletcher, Director of Parks and Recreation, and congratulations, Senator. So I'm here with some pretty good news, and as we know, we've been talking about the Mary Waite Pool. The city was notified by Northwest Center not too long ago that they will cease in operations at the end of the year. And with that, a decision had to be made of what to do. The school district and the city have gotten together. This council and the school board authorized staff to get together and to look at some options. And as your agenda bill states, there are three things to look at. Either the city or the school district take over the pool, or find another pool operator, or discontinue aquatics on Mercer Island. And nobody wanted to do that. So the aquatic committee, made up of school board members and city council members, decided to allow the staff, led by city manager Rich Conrad and school superintendent Dr. Plano, to look into the next steps. And a lot of progress was made very quickly. First of all, we hired an aquatics consultant, KGJ Design, to kind of look at the pool to say, what kind of shape is it in? Is this something that we want to step into? Is this something that could be very expensive? Or is this something that no way we want to do this? And so the attachment is in your packet of the recommendations. And Kevin Johnson, who was the design person that came out, did this review back in 2001, 2002, when the city of Mercer Island took over the pool. So he was very, very impressed. A lot of changes have made to the better of the Mary Waite Pool. So that was a good thing. When the decision was to go out to see if there were pool consultants that wanted to come in and take care of this pool, the school district and the city made very clear that either the school district or the city may take over the pool as well. And after careful consideration, the school district superintendent intends to recommend that the school district take over pool operations. From that, the school district will enter an agreement with a pool consultant to run operations. And this is a big step up for the school district, and I applaud them for doing that, assuming the school board authorizes and approves this. What it means for the city is to enter in an agreement, an interlocal, with the school district. Once again, there will be some financial arrangements necessary to keep this thing going. So in your packet, you'll see there's $100,000 annually, like we've been doing for the last several years. And we are going to add an additional $25,000 that will be put in a fund for repairs and maintenance that the school district may or may not have to use. Now, if the school district thinks they need to use it, they'll use their $25,000 because they're going to put another $25,000 in. They'll use their $25,000 first, and once that's depleted, they'll ask city manager Conrad permission to use the additional $25,000. It may not be needed. It may just roll over year after year. But then again, we are working with a 40-year-old pool. So the neat thing is, as I said, the school district they're the facility owner and they're the landowner. So they're going to be in charge of the pool. What we're going to do is the city assuming that you guys approve this, authorize this interlocal, you're able to help continue aquatics on the island for the next several years. And I think that's a good thing for our strong aquatic crowd that keeps coming in day after day. So with that, the long-term issue of the pool, that is something that's going to be looked at by the committee next year. But right now, we're just wanting to get authorization for the city manager to enter into this agreement, interlocal between the city of Mercer Island and the Mercer Island School District to save Mercer Island Pool. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
Great. Bruce, before we do that, I believe Rich has got a few.
Yeah, I'd like to tag on a couple of things. First of all, in terms of decision-making process here, assuming the council supports this interlocal agreement, the school board will have this before them this coming Thursday night. Assuming that they also support it, then they will also they'll go from there and also consider and hopefully adopt an agreement with a third-party operator. So as of Thursday night, everything will be in place for Mary Waite Pool to continue operations. The superintendent called this afternoon to tell me that he has a tentative agreement with Olympic Cascade Aquatics. We received two proposals, one from Olympic Cascade and the other from AMG Aquatics. AMG operates a number of pools around the region that were former King County pools. Olympic Cascade hasn't done that, but they're an island-based organization. They currently, under contract, run the Mercerwood Shore Club aquatics program. They also have a competitive aquatics program for kids, and this is their club. It serves 160 kids. 107 of those kids are Mercer Island residents. They're very much an island-based organization. Alice Godfred and John Walker are the key players in OCA, and they're very eager to take this on in partnership with the school district. John comes with 20 years of aquatics experience. He ran, before coming to Seattle 7 years ago, he ran the USA Swimming's national team division based in Colorado Springs. They're very committed to aquatics, particularly here on Mercer Island. They have many years' experience running pools. They have right now 40 employees helping run the Mercerwood and other aspects of their organization. They will consider consolidating the staff that Northwest Center has had at the pool and bring it into their staff, so there'll be continuity in the operators themselves, actual individuals. They'll set up a separate LLC to run just Mary Wade Pool, keeping them organizationally separate from their private nonprofit. So their proposal looked good. They're prepared to do this on the same basis that Northwest Center did, with the one exception being this $25,000 reserve account that will be set up in case they have an operating deficit or an additional need for capital improvements. As Bruce said, the school district would spend its capital dollars first before any request would be made to us, and we would only approve any dollars over $100,000 if they can demonstrate to us a financial need. So both Gary and I are delighted that we were able to, in a fairly short period of time, come up with a solution, keep Mary Wade Pool open seamlessly, and we both urge the council and the board to support it.
Questions from the council? Yeah, Mike?
Hey, Bruce, great job. I just have a question on the title to the facility and the land. It's my understanding Northwest will then hand that over to the school district as of the end of this month, or is that just for the facility?
Facility and land. The land's always been school district, but the facility.
Yeah, it was always school district land, and the facility at the end of the forward thrust bond term, I think it's 2012, it reverts to the school district. So they are the owner.
Al?
Yeah, I've got a few questions, I guess, for you, Bruce. I'm looking at the interlocal agreement proposed, paragraph 2.9. Why is it written in there that the city needs to reserve the right to operate Mary Wade Pool? I'm looking about the fourth and fifth line down. And I guess the context for my question is, for the last 5-7 years, we've been providing a operating subsidy of $100,000 a year, and we're going to continue doing this per this agreement for 2011 and 2012, as well as provide an extra $25,000 quote in reserve for operating deficits and capital expenditures. So we've already committed that money. Why was this language necessary? I mean, if this agreement or this interim arrangement doesn't work, a whole new deal has to be developed somewhere, somehow. So, and I'm trying to imagine any eventuality where we, per this agreement, would step in to operate the pool.
That section, excuse me, Bruce, let me just jump in. That section, the whole section 2, is in the recital section. It's almost like setting a historical record. All it's saying is that when we sent out a request for proposals, included in that was a notation to the potential operators or applicants that the city or school could decide to reject all applications and do it themselves. So this was only...
Why wouldn't you say that the city and or school district had the right to reject all applications rather than saying we're going to step in and run it ourselves? I mean...
Well, actually, exactly what this says is happening. The school district is deciding to step in.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So why is it necessary to say the city reserves the right?
Well, we don't reserve the right. What we said is about a month ago, we communicated to the applicants
Rich,
that we could.
Look at the language here, the second sentence in 2.9.
Yeah, it's past tense. The pool operator proposal request also disclosed that the school district and city would reserve the right to operate the pool. All we're trying to do is tell the people, if you apply to us, we may say, we didn't like either proposal, and one of us might decide to step in. The attorneys thought it would be good just to get a historic record of how this came to this point in that recital section. But it is not intended at all to suggest the city continues to want to reserve the right to run the pool. I've made it clear throughout all of this. I did not believe the city was going to be in the pool business in this agreement. So.
Okay, Bruce, under 3.4, level of service. The way I read that, the district is committing to this level of service. And what if that doesn't work? What if the actual operating expenses exceed the available $150,000 a year? What if it goes into deficit? What it says here is they're not allowed to cut back the levels of service.
Well, the level of service, this was primarily looking at trying to keep hours and operations and programs for citizens.
Exactly, but if you have run a bigger deficit than anticipated, the first thing you have to do, I guess after you come pleading to the city council for more money, is to say, well, we're going to cut hours of service or levels of service or types of service, right?
Well, I think if they did come and depleted all the money, I think we would all be here because there is no more money to run this thing.
Well, therefore my question. I mean, they may want to say, well, we'll try and run it within the designated operating subsidy of $150,000 a year, and to do so, we have to cut the hours of service, the hours it's open.
I did speak to Gary about that very point this afternoon. In the agreement that they have drafted between the district and OCA, they have agreed to maintain existing services, but those services can be adjusted in order to find a more efficient way of delivery. So his example was if they have a lap swim time and there's a pattern of only 2 people showing up, they won't get rid of lap swim. What they'll do is they'll move it to a different time, a different day, so that they can open up the time to get more usage and more revenue. And so the latitude they have is to preserve the services, but they get to adjust them in a way that goes after exactly what you're talking about, reducing the operating cost, the operating subsidy.
Well, that's my point. And why then do we have this paragraph 3.4 in here? Because the school district, in one way or the other, may want to reduce the levels of service.
Well, they tried to have at least some soft language there and called it reasonably similar to the programs and hours, and the district is clearly interpreting that to give the operators some flexibility in running the programs as efficiently and at as low cost as possible.
Some of the same language is within Northwest Center agreement as well.
I know, but this is a new deal, and we got new numbers and a new reality and bigger.
The good thing I can tell
debts.
you, we did study 3 years worth of records from Northwest Center, and we feel pretty confident that this is going to work out just fine. But the only thing, of course, is an old pool. If something major broke, then there'd be issues.
Paragraph 4.3. We're talking about an unavoidable operating deficit loss, or I guess deficit, and I was wondering what the difference between an unavoidable operating loss and just an operating loss is.
Well, my understanding is unavoidable. There's some pipes that are 40 years old. If something were to happen catastrophically, there would be no way that we could...
Yeah, but it doesn't say catastrophic loss. It says something, it says unavoidable. I mean, what I would suggest is just deleting the word unavoidable, because there's, nobody is voluntarily or intentionally going to run at a loss or a deficit. I mean, you either have a deficit or not.
I got to believe that that's probably going to be okay with the district. I look at our attorneys. Dropping unavoidable doesn't look like it would hurt the city's position at all.
Well, it would be in the favor of the school district,
right? So
clearly, I mean, what they should be looking for.
Right.
I don't know what they're looking for. They should be looking for maximum flexibility here.
Yeah.
I
don't see a problem.
And by the same token, my question is the last line of 4.3 needs the approval of both the district and the city. Now, by virtue of appropriating an additional $25,000 to be in reserve for operating deficits or capital expenditures, have we not pre-approved the expenditure of that money just for that purpose?
No.
If not, why are we putting it up then?
We have not pre-approved it without first having them demonstrate to us the need.
Okay.
So that's what that means.
So why is it even in the agreement then? Because what you're saying is they have to come back to us, make the case that there's a need,
and then we would have it available.
Well, with our approval. I mean, this is what I get out of this agreement.
With the staff's approval.
Okay,
that's the difference.
So it's an administrative decision.
It's an administrative decision. It doesn't come back to the council.
That was going to be my question.
Okay. Well, I mean, here again, I kind of wondering, because what we got when we looked at this was with the Northwest Center thought it was going to be, they were going to need a subsidy of $150,000 a year. That's what we have in this agreement, and that's what we're approving as a council now, and yet we're saying you only get it if you come back and demonstrate need, and it just seems to me that if we put up the money and approved it, it should be there if they need it.
Well, I think, I'll speak for myself, I think Gary would agree with me. We asked for Northwest Center's books to show, at least what we got was, show us what your budget would be if you were to do this in 2011. And they showed us numbers that we thought possibly could have this pool operating for $100,000 operating subsidy. The question marks were about their internal operations at Northwest Center. How much money did they allocate towards administrative overhead? How much in capital were they prepared to put in? And it wasn't totally clear. So what Gary and I decided to do is to approach this with the next operator as being, we want to go in thinking that this thing can be done for that $100,000, and we want to see the books, how it gets operated over and above that, if and when that occurs. We want to be prepared for that moment, because we certainly had evidence from Northwest Center that we may need a little bit more money. But we weren't quite ready to just go say, okay, here it is. So we added another step, that they need to show us their accounting, their processes, and if it's reasonable, we would approve it. If it's unreasonable, we wouldn't.
Yeah, well, reasonableness is in the eye of the beholder. Evidently, there's a proposal now that Gary's about to accept from some operator, and I would guess that operator has presented an operating budget. Is that fair to assume?
They are the negotiations between the operator and the school district are theirs. I am not party to those discussions.
Okay, but you think it's essential that we keep approval of expenditure of that extra $25,000?
Yes, I do.
I feel like because I'm in Councilmember Grouse's position, I should ask something about the indemnification clause, but I don't know what to ask.
Do you have any questions?
No, but I'm prepared.
Okay, any else, Steve?
So, Bruce, reading the report of KJ Design, essentially the pool's in good condition. They've been impressed with how Northwest has maintained it over the last couple of years. There looks like there's about $60,000 in what they term immediate needs, of which the vast majority, 45 of that, is for the ADA compliance. But overall, what I read here was pool's in reasonably good shape for a pool of its age, can continue for the foreseeable future, needs to keep update and maintenance, that type of thing. Is that
That's
reasonable?
Correct. And the school district is going to take those immediate needs and make those repairs very soon.
School district's going at this, as you can tell from this agreement, in a 2-year time frame. But the agreement that they'll have with OCA will be for an up to a 5-year agreement. Initially commit for 2 years, and then 1-year extensions up to 5. So that starts to give you a sense of the time frame. I think the school district's prepared to talk about the property, the building, and then how and when we talk about the pool of the future. It's going to happen within 2 to 5 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Bruce?
I'd like to make a... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Bruce, then I'll get you, Mike. Yeah.
So, Rich, you looked over the books. I was just curious to get a sense of the split between operating and capital within the latest budget from Northwest Center. And the reason I'm going after this is I just want to understand the new contract that's being proposed. Is it really looking at just the full $100,000 is for operating, and then all the capital costs are within the $50,000, or
well, no, actually,
and is that and in the place I end up going is that kind of a sweet deal for the operator because they've been absolved of all capital costs?
Well, so it's not quite that, but the $100,000 operating dollars and up to 25 additional operating, if they can prove it, is all about operating subsidy, just like it was with Northwest Center. King County had a capital fund that it turned over to Northwest Center that had been part of the King County budget and the Ford Trust bonds from years ago. There's 60 or 70,000 of those dollars left. That authority to spend those on capital for the pool will transfer to the school district. So that becomes the first pot of dollars to do these capital improvements. If additional dollars are needed, the next place that they will go is the $25,000 that the school district is putting up for capital. And if that's not enough, then they can apply for some part of the 25 that we've put up. If any of that is over and above what is needed, it'll just stay in reserve, and ultimately when the Merriway Pool closes, it'll just get distributed back to the city or the school district, wherever the dollars came from in the first place.
Okay. But I think you answered my question right at the front, which
the
is
operator,
to say that the $100,000 was all going to operating costs
yes,
in the previous arrangement, and that was
the case.
That was coming up too short for them to continue.
It's basically the same deal with Northwest Center, 100,000 operations subsidy for the operations, and that's what they had. That's what will be in this.
Okay.
Plus the reserve that could be used for operating if they show a deficit.
And so then when they showed a need for us to increase the budget in order for them to stay in the black, it was going to shift from being just an operating budget to being an operating plus capital budget?
Well, Northwest Center said no. They were saying they were losing $50,000 a year, and that's why they decided to terminate the agreement. So we asked them, show us what your budget would be for 2011. We want to know where is it that you're losing the dollars, and that's where I say it became a little bit gray. I suspect quite a bit of that $50,000 was actually being allocated to overhead costs within Northwest Center. And that's not going to happen with either the city or the school district. We're not going to charge an overhead rate for the CEO and the board and all. So when we studied their numbers, we all concluded we think this actually might pencil out at 100. We just don't know for sure until we get in there and do it.
And in the past, capital costs were being covered out of the county money because we weren't putting any dollars towards capital.
That's correct.
Okay, so in a good scenario, they operate on the $100,000, they operate on the county capital money, and we actually end up doing fine out of that.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
I'd like to move to authorize the city manager to enter into an interlocal agreement between the City of Mercer Island and the Mercer Island School District for aquatic services at the Mary Waite Swimming Pool and amending paragraph 4.3 by deleting on the first line and unavoidable.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion. It's been seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I guess you raised the issue, Rich, of the King County Capital Reserve. And so the deal is that that gets spent before spending any of our the city's $25,000 for capital improvements?
That's correct. And the school district's 25 gets spent before they apply for our 25 for capital improvements. We're the last dollars in for capital.
Mike?
The thing that gets me excited about this arrangement is the consulting report, that it really puts a fairly positive light on the Mary Waite pool, I think, from a structural or even a mechanical perspective, which I was fully expecting a doomsday scenario, but the consultant's report does not say that at all. So I'm very pleasantly surprised over that.
As we all were.
Great.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great. Nice work. Great. Now we're going to move on to the next agenda item. This is Agenda Bill 4589, third quarter 2010 financial status report. And Chip, you're on deck.
Good evening. For the record, your Finance Director, Chip Quarter. I didn't come prepared with a financial presentation. I think you're sick of me. I'm sick of me. And so let me, give me. Want to see the sign on the back that says kick me? Okay, just a couple of highlights. There's some good news in this third quarter report. One is, and I mentioned this at our last council meeting a week ago, from the general funds perspective, we're still looking at a $2 million revenue shortfall. That's not good news, but the good news is we're definitely going to secure $1.5 million at least in expenditure savings, and I think it's going to be more than that, probably closer to 1.7, maybe 1.8. What that means is the $479,000 that you had appropriated to be used this year from the rainy day fund, I'm not going to need all of it. I'll need some portion of it.
Make sure you don't tell Dan that.
Okay. Happy to hide money from Councilmember Grouse. Kidding. So that's good news. Is we're again last year, 2009, we dealt with a $1.34 million revenue shortfall. We're absorbing a $2 million revenue shortfall, mostly on the expenditure side. Sales tax, while overall it's down 3.9% this year compared to last year through third quarter, the good news is when you look at individual months beginning in August, it's finally higher than the same month a year ago. In other words, it's turned. The line is turned for us, so that's good. Development fees, definitely improving. Development permits, up significantly. Total valuation of permits, up significantly this year compared to last year. REIT up significantly, and so lots of good things are happening, and we're moving in the right direction. What's before you are a few budget adjustments, just to tie up some loose ends from this year. The one regarding Island Crest Way, there's the corridor design, the crossings, pedestrian crossings design, as well as some striping. And that's a $140,000 budget appropriation for work that's been done this year, and it's all about just, that work has not been appropriated this year. This has been a bit of an outlier on the scattergraph of CIP projects. We're finally coming back to you since, I think June was really the last time, to finally appropriate and provide the authorized funding for what's been done year to date. I will mention to the council there's been $225,000 that's effectively reserved for construction in the coming biennium, and we'll come back to the council, I'm assuming in February of next year, regarding awarding, or not awarding bids, but authorization to go to bid, excuse me. Happy to take questions from the council.
Does that relate to the grant for these crosswalks?
Well, the grant for the crosswalks will help with the funding of the construction. And then in addition to those grants, there'll be $225,000 that we've kind of set aside at the direction of council for construction.
Okay, so, and the grant amount, it seems to me, was around $225,000, wasn't it?
246, 244, something like that.
For those two, specifically for those two.
For those two crosswalks, that's correct.
Okay, any questions for Chip? Yeah, Mike?
Chip, I have a question on page 10 of the exhibit, and maybe clarification or a suggestion. On the asterisk there, the note, remaining contingency fund balance equals $1.86 million. You know how we are up here. When we see that, we look at that as 1.86 contingency fund as having the same value, or it doesn't differentiate between the 50% that you use for the rainy day and I wonder if it would have any utility in the future in differentiating that, to remind us that that full 1.86 million isn't necessarily available. Because you know how we are up here.
Sure. Yeah, I could do that. You're not locked into that, but that is my recommendation. The council's endorsed that recommendation to use no more than half of it for rainy day. There isn't an official carved in stone policy, but it is an expressed intent of the council.
By midday tomorrow, it may have rained enough that never mind.
Well, I mean, I was thinking about that. That's very true.
Actually, we do typically think of the rainy day fund, the contingency fund, as a place we would go to with landslides where we have to do an
That's
immediate.
a euphemism, Rich. Come on. For real?
Okay, any other questions for Chip?
The other question I have is, Chip, you did a very good job back in 2008 preparing the council. I had to go back now. Preparing the council that this rainy day fund, we're in this for the long haul.
4 years.
This rainy day fund is going to have to last for 4 years to 2012, and we're in that mind frame. Well, it's now 2010. Do you still think that this rainy day fund will be finished with this at the end of 2012, or do we need to push that window another 2 years off to the right, that the rainy day fund has to work for
It's a hard call. Keep in mind that, even including Councilmember Jenke, this is the worst recession in our lifetimes. And it's just that he's seasoned and experienced. In our lifetimes, this is the worst recession. So we're in.
Talk about abuse here.
Abuse. That is, we're in uncharted territory in my lifetime. So, given what I know and what I'm watching going on in Europe, and I'm not an international economist, but I get concerned when I watch debt problems in Spain and in Ireland, et cetera. I get very concerned. At what point does that impact the U.S.? It will impact us, I guarantee you. So, if I were a betting man, do I think we're going to pull out of this in 2 years? No. But I'm just one guy with one opinion.
Well,
I would plan for at least another year.
Okay, I appreciate that. And maybe that's something, Mr. City Manager, we should talk about at the planning session in January.
Any other questions? Okay.
Mike, you want me to give my economic forecast in January? Okay.
And how was the Spanish Inquisition?
Mr. Mayor, move to...
Bruce?
Mr. Mayor, move to suspend the City Council Rules of Procedure 5.2 and adopt ordinance number 10-10, amending the 2009 to 2010 budget.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. You got an A there? Okay. On with our final agenda bill. This is the adoption of the 2011-2012 budget. And Chip?
I was advised that I could combine them.
Is that City Attorney?
I know in the council rules of procedure, I looked it up too, on housekeeping financial issues. You are allowed to do that. I don't know that it actually says, maybe Shane, you've looked, that it actually requires that first they suspend the rules, but it specifically does say something about housekeeping financial stuff.
You can. It might actually be cleaner to do it in two in case there was
I think we've always done it in two. We kind of need a heads up if we're going to change them.
I apologize. That's my fault.
Wait a minute. We already passed the motion.
Right.
We've done it. And I'm not going to suggest we redo it.
So in the future, we will do
Two
with
motions.
two motions.
Okay. Good catch. All right. Chip?
Okay, what's before you here on Agenda Bill 4594 is the final budget ordinance for 2011-2012. I've tried to be detailed, noting in terms of council changes to the budget, staff changes to the budget, breaking them down in terms of revenues and expenditures. I think I've captured everything accurately. Happy to entertain questions about those adjustments, if the council has any.
Questions?
I'll just mention one thing. I got the final, it was the day of last Monday's council meeting, I got the final new construction, what's called the refund levy amounts from King County Assessor's Office. So I folded those in, and I just applied those against the rainy day fund, reducing that contingency fund transfer for 11 and 12.
That's the $31,000 item.
39, I believe.
$39,000 item. So what we now have in the budget is the actual tax amount?
Yes. I like my budget to tie exactly to the authorized levy.
Okay. With that, would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor.
This is like the last one.
Act as a city council member.
This is like a swan song?
Yes, I'd like to move to adopt.
You do this to in musically?
Yeah, I'd like to sing a song. It's my last tonight. Yes. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to adopt ordinance number 10-15, which adopts the budget for the city of Mercer Island, Washington for the years 2011-2012.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mike?
Sure, I'd like to say something. Well, I'm not going to support this, and the reason is because I think we went about it the wrong way, and that is we went on it too much on the revenue side, especially in this day where everybody's hurting out there. I just met another person who's unemployed, another Islanders who's unemployed looking for work. And looking from a holistic perspective, it's not as if this is the only revenue side of it. When I went back and I compared the 2009-10 biennial budget review that we did back in November '09, and I compared Resolution 1415 to this year's Resolution 1431 for water fees. The single-family residential fixed water utility tax or rate, whatever you want to call it, increased 9.5%. Same increase for low income. Multifamily residential fixed water increased 9.5. Residential volume charge increase, again, for water rates, 9.5. Commercial fixed charges increased 18%, while volume charges increased 2.6. Irrigation water tax, 18.4. Table of meter fixed charges, 9.5. What I'm trying to show here is that, I think across the board we increased taxes. When I compare last year's Resolution 1416 to this year's Resolution 1432 for sewer fees, the city's portion of the sewer utility tax increased 9.2%. This is on top of the King County sewage treatment rate increase of 13.2%. When I look at Resolution 1417 to this year's resolution of 1433 on storm and surface water taxes, all customers' stormwater utility tax increased 3.33%. All customers' EMS utility tax increased 35%. Increased connecting charges of about 1%. Again, the next resolution, Resolution 1434, that we did 2 years ago, last year, to last week's Resolution 14, I've got my numbers here wrong, Option 2 EMS and ambulance service. The single-family residential tax increases 17%, and this is on top of the temporary ambulance fee, which, as you all know, I was very much against. And let me say something about that sunset temporary fee, on how confident that I am that this is not going to sunset. If this tax sunsets, I'll shave my head. I will shave my head, and I'll make.
Allie, did you get that in the minutes?
I'll make the polo team look like hippies. So this is going to have some long-term, serious tax implication that I won't say are unintended consequences. I don't like using that word in government. I like to say ignored consequences. I thought the fire union was very unselfish in voicing their displeasure on this ambulance fee, because when we add 700 hours from their status quo to transport, I can guarantee you that that's going to come back to haunt us and either hire personnel or higher taxes to pay for overtime, et cetera. And we're raising all these taxes while we don't need to. Councilmember Grady showed hundreds and thousands of cuts of efficiencies. I think I showed hundreds and thousands of cuts and efficiencies. The Beautification Fund has a balance. The Arts Fund has a balance. With creativity, we could easily move that money into the general fund. A general fund that does not look the same today as it did 2 years ago. So when you compare today's general fund with yesterday's general fund, you're really comparing apples and oranges to the services that X million dollars of the general fund provides today versus the same amount of yesterday. Some other things in Resolution 1436, it's not a revenue issue. It's not a revenue problem. It's an expense problem. Against additional revenue we're bringing to the table. The Fire Protection Plan for Development increases revenue by charging for the service. Here again, that was previously accomplished by the general fund. Now we're charging an additional tax through permit fees. And the logic behind increasing the building valuation by approximately 17%, I really did not. I don't think that should have come to the council the way it was. It wasn't a apples to apples comparison to Medina. Please, isolating the building valuation does not recognize the many different charges and permit fees that make for the holistic DSG budget, coming from demolition to fire sprinkler to permits for fuel tanks, land clearing inspections, outside normal business hours, reinspection. All this stuff has to come into consideration, as we did not a year ago, and we identified DSG at 94% cost recovery. And at that 94% cost recovery, we only identified approximately $80,000 additional monies that we need to finance. And yet 12 months later, we're going through these additional fees, create $180,000, when before we only had a potential max of $80,000. And that in light of a decrease activity in DSG because of permits. I mean, it just doesn't add up there. So, I really thought we had a strong mandate to at least try for our citizens to balance this budget on the expense side, as government does, as every household does. We adjust to the ebb and flows of the economy, but I think we didn't make the hard decisions, and as a result, we're going to hit citizens on Mercer Island, which have a wide demographics. We're going to hit the islanders with increased taxes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mike, I got to say, with your offer to go with a bald hippie head, you may have given your colleagues every necessary incentive to sunset this ambulance fee. I'm almost there right now, so.
I think Steve's going to vote from Olympia on that one.
I'll come back to that.
Anything on this side? Any comments? Mike?
Just a few, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for acknowledging me and giving me the time to do so. I agree with most of what Mike said, but as I was driving here, stuck in traffic on 40th, I thought this just is no fun, and for the public, either here in person or on TV tonight. All of us came to the dais here trying to really do our best, and for that I appreciate every one of you. I do recall at our last planning session the discussion about, let's look at expenditure cuts first, and then we'll talk about revenues. And I think some of us, myself included, kind of sat back and waited for that to happen, and then it may have appeared that at the 11th hour then we were coming in with additional expenditure cuts. So for that I apologize, but I do think that we all had the right thing in mind, and that was to get our respective house in order. I also, in talking to Rich and others, another guiding principle I had was to have zero staff cuts, if that were at all possible, because the last thing I wanted to do is put additional people out of work. And like Mike, there are many friends that I know on Mercer Island today that are going unemployed. So to what extent we can keep that jobless rate at least static for the time being, we should. I thought we did a pretty good job addressing public safety issues, addressing community services, and addressing environmental concerns, although I'm very concerned about the safety net that we have on Mercer Island, given that I know Cindy Goodwin, bless her heart, offered up an awful lot in this budget. And I'm concerned about the safety net that we've left in place. So I guess, moving forward, I think it'd be helpful at the planning session for us to kind of go through this process and maybe do a better job amongst ourselves in clearly articulating what the rules of engagement are for the budget for the next round, how we as council members can provide you, Chip, with better input in advance so that we're not kind of waiting and waiting and waiting and then at the 11th hour giving you some inputs, because I know that, caused some problems for you. And then also really sticking by our city council rules, meaning, if we come up with ideas, we stick to the 1 hour rule or whatever, our rules of engagement are, but we really, we have a level playing field for all of us on the council. And we're spending equal time looking at expenditure and revenue enhancements. So it's been a tough process. It's been a learning process, I know, for me and probably everyone on the dais here, and we're in a tough spot, and it's not going to get easier in the near future. So I think one challenge that I have for myself working with other council members is to spend some time between now and mid-January with each of you to figure out, okay, how can we do a better job not only in balancing the budget, but finding efficiencies, finding ways to get additional grant revenues, like the grant for Island Crestway, like the grants for the hybrid cars for the police department, et cetera. Finding ways to get additional revenues in here from other sources to enhance what we've already got. So thank you, Rich. Thank you, Chief, both Chief Tubbs and Ed. And particularly thank you to Chip for being so patient. I appreciate it.
Comments, Bruce?
I actually just wanted to echo the last thing that Mike said here. I had a citizen today ask the question, how is it possible that staff manages to sort of survive the budget process with council doing all that it does? And Chip, I think you are the rock in the whole process. You keep it all together. You are able to keep the numbers all in hand, and I certainly, speaking for myself, never doubt that you don't have a grasp of what's going on. And so I think that's an absolutely critical piece of what happens here, and you are an essential piece of that. And so I say thank you to you. Thank you to the whole staff, everybody who, especially, as we look at what's happened over this past year, the amount that you've been able to do to cut costs and yet still achieve the services that the community wants, it's phenomenal, I think, and you deserve our praise and everybody's praise for that. And going into this new budget period, you've done even more. So thank you to you, and thanks for putting up with us as a council as we try and struggle our way through the sausage-making process that is government.
Other comments? Steve, anything?
Yeah, the budget is not it's not perfect, and this is the first time in my 7 years that what we're fighting about are the cuts and not the surplus. A dramatically different perspective this year than we've had in the last got to be 10 years. I am not and did not support the ambulance charge, but the council took the vote, and there are pieces that I'm sure everybody on the council doesn't like. But I think we've achieved a reasonable balance and a reasonable budget going forward. So again, thank you to Chip and the rest of the staff for all of your work in putting together a very difficult budget.
Yeah, I've got a question regarding our ambulance plan. There's to be a sunset date.
Yes.
When are we going to actually see an ordinance that has that date in it?
We're going to come back to you in January. It'll probably be, I think, the first meeting in January when we do the authorizing ordinance.
Okay, we will see an ordinance with a date of January 31,
2011.
2012.
Or 12, yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it'll have the razor on pack strapped to it.
I'm wondering if we could just go ahead and sunset it and then bring it right back.
All those in favor? I'd just like to say, I think Steve articulated what's on my mind. 9 years on council, first time that our values have been about trying to save things rather than adding things. Different concept, and I don't think anyone up here won every battle. I don't think anyone here got everything they wanted. I think there's been a lot of give and goes, and I think staff did a great job, and I'm very respectful of the council up here that all of us were very passionate about our beliefs and what we thought was the right thing to do. It's all good. And I think we came up with, a good budget, and staff hung in there, and we sure do appreciate that. So hopefully the economy and everything will improve in the next 2 years, and no one will have to go through what we went through again. So fingers crossed. But with that, I would offer any more comments. Seeing none, there's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. That runs the end of our special meeting. Before we go, I do want to bring to your attention that Ally is accepting applications for Steve's position. The position will stay open for applications to December 30th, 5 o'clock. Is that correct? So if anyone or you know anyone who is interested, that is it. If they don't get them in by December 30th, 5 o'clock, they will not be considered. So that is date certain.
Yep.
So, yeah.
On the schedule, I got a question or comment?
We don't have, but go ahead.
This is on our schedule. We're now confirmed for our planning session January 22nd, 23rd.
21st, 22nd, 23rd, Friday, the 21st.
And so my question is, when are we going to see the council schedule for at least the first 6 months of next year?
After your planning session is complete and I know what issues...
No, the dates for the meetings.
Oh, Ally can produce the meeting dates. Yeah, and we can send that out.
I mean, for at least the first 6 months, and let me throw out a suggestion.
Yeah, we could do the whole year.
No, it's the whole year, and let me suggest that we schedule a June mini planning session now, so we don't go through that crisis of trying to figure out when we can schedule it. If we get it on the schedule now, it's before anybody has anything else scheduled, so we can make it happen easily.
Okay,
will do.
Great. Anything else to say? With that, Steve?
I have
yeah?
something real quick.
Go ahead.
Attended the emergency meeting that Officer Franklin had on Saturday. It was on terrorism. And just a real professional presentation by Officer DeChant. You could really tell that he was a student of his profession. And we had 21 Islanders there, which is very positive. And those are some unsung heroes that they'll take their Saturday morning to help for the good of all, I might add.
Right. Well, that ends the meeting. And with that, Steve, this is your last one. And it's been a good ride, and yeah, absolutely. There you go.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Good luck. Meeting's adjourned.
There we go.
Thank you.